there is a part of you that you do not know. A quiet part, buried deep, that speaks only in dreams or hollow moments you can't explain. That is your inner child, still there, waiting to be seen, to be loved, to be accepted unconditionally. And if you often feel you're not good enough, if you keep searching for love from those who cannot love you fully, if you constantly believe you have to try harder, be better, be more beautiful to deserve love, it's not because you're weak. It's because that child still lives in you, still hasn't healed, and still believes love is something you must earn. We grow up carrying unspoken beliefs, etched into our subconscious by childhood. That crying is a weakness, that anger is bad, that only perfection makes us worthy. These wounds don't vanish as we grow older. They quietly shape how we relate to others, how we treat ourselves, and how we exhaust ourselves trying to feel loved. This video isn't about placing blame, it's about awakening, about recognizing that wound, understanding its roots, and beginning the journey to heal. A journey that isn't easy, but is worth it, because it leads you back to yourself. Not the version of you that performs for love, but the real you, whole, complete, worthy. This is the moment you stop chasing love from the outside and begin learning how to give it to yourself. Because no one can love you more deeply than the one who has been hurt and still chooses to rise and love again. Number 1. Who is the inner child? None of us are born feeling inadequate. A newborn knows nothing of the idea that it must be perfect to be loved. It expresses emotions freely, unafraid of judgment, unashamed of being itself. That child laughs when it's happy, cries when it's sad, rages when it's hurt, openly and fully. It exists as a raw, whole piece of life in its most natural state. This is the archetypal image of the inner child, the innocent, emotional, vibrant part of our soul that Carl Jung believed never disappears. In Jungian psychology, the inner child is not merely a memory of childhood, it is a living part of the adult psyche. Jung called these inner images archetypes, and the inner child is a vital one. It carries within it the power to heal, a sense of wonder, and the unhealed wounds of the past. But what changed that child? What made you, someone who once expressed yourself with confidence, learn to stay silent, to shrink, to question your worth? The answer lies in your earliest experiences with love and safety. When a child's emotions are rejected or ignored, when they cry and are told, "Stop crying, there's nothing to cry about," they don't learn how to regulate emotions. They learn that their emotions are a problem. Carl Jung once wrote, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming of consciousness. There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion." When a child is denied emotional expression, they are denied the right to be themselves. That is the first wound to the core of their being. And if that child could speak at that moment, they might whisper through tears, "If I'm not good, will I still be allowed to stay?" A small question, but one that quietly becomes the condition for every relationship that follows. Eventually, the child It surfaces through repeated behaviors, loving the wrong people, seeking validation, fearing abandonment, never feeling good enough. These wounds of rejection and neglect silently drive our psychology, like buggy software running in the background until we ask, why do I keep repeating these patterns? And then, the most dangerous thing happens. The child learns to hide. It understands that to be accepted, it must conceal itself. Don't be loud. Don't complain. Don't be too different. It learns to read adult emotions, to adjust itself accordingly. It becomes the people pleaser, the good child, the one who's always okay, roles that seem safe but are deeply damaging. The tragedy is that these roles persist into adulthood. We still smile when we're sad. We still say, "I'm fine," when our hearts are breaking. We still live to be liked, but no longer recognize ourselves in the mirror. That's the cost of abandoning the inner child for too long. We lose our connection to who we really are. The healing story cannot begin unless we realize that child is still here, not in memory, but in every emotional response today. It's the one who cries at rejection, the one who fears silence in love, the one who feels small when someone doesn't choose us. And it's also the one waiting for you to return, to hold its hand and say, "You don't have to earn love anymore. You are enough, just as you are." Understanding the inner child is the first step in the journey of individuation, the process Jung described as the greatest spiritual mission of a human life. We are not here to live as others expect. We are here to rediscover our true self among the shadows, the wounds, the parts we once rejected. Healing the inner child is not sentimentality. It is the most profound act of self-love. A love that transforms, not just soothes pain, but frees the self that's been trapped by memory. You don't have to keep performing. Your inner child doesn't need you to be better. It needs you to be present, to be brave enough to look back, to embrace it, and say, "I see you. I believe in you. I won't leave you again." And that is when the real journey begins. Number 2, the wound beneath every relationship. And then the child grows up, but it never disappears. It isn't buried, isn't erased by time or age. It simply takes on new shapes, wears an adult mask, and continues to live inside you. Except now, it influences what you least expect. Love, loneliness, insecurity, and even the way you choose who enters your life. If you've ever wondered why you keep falling into relationships that make you feel small, where no matter how hard you try, it's never enough, where you love someone who makes you wait or doubt, then pause. It's not because you're unlucky, not because you're unattractive or unworthy. It's because an old wound is choosing for you. A child who once felt abandoned, unworthy, is still quietly leading the way. We often believe love is a rational decision, but more often, it's an unconscious emotional reflex. You didn't choose someone who makes you feel dismissed. You simply became familiar with that feeling from a young age. It became your emotional comfort zone, where pain feels familiar enough to feel safe. When someone loves you completely, unconditionally, without control, it feels strange. You don't know how to receive it. You begin to doubt. Are they being real? Why are they so kind? What have I done to deserve this? And so you start to withdraw. Not because you don't want to be loved, but because deep down, you don't believe you're worthy of love that doesn't require effort. Carl Jung called this the shadow. In Ion, Researches into the Phenomenology of the Self, 1951, he wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. The shadow is the part of the soul we reject, avoid, or refuse to admit as ours. And because it's exiled into the unconscious, it becomes the most powerful force in our behavior. In love, that shadow is often the wounded child who never knew what it felt like to be fully loved. Consider the case of a man in his 30s, successful, well-liked, but in relationships, he's always drawn to distant, emotionally unavailable partners. He tells himself he prefers a challenge, but in truth, he's following an old pattern. As a child, his mother was strict and emotionally withdrawn if he didn't perform well. So, love became conditional. Subconsciously, he believes he must earn affection, and anyone who loves him too easily feels untrustworthy. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." Because he never made peace with his shadow, it keeps showing up in every partner he chooses. Or take the woman who's been through 3 relationships where she was consistently undervalued. The sad part isn't that she stayed, it's that she kept trying, kept changing herself to please her partners. Why? Because as a child, she often witnessed her parents fight, and she believed if she were a better child, more obedient, her parents would be happy. She tied her worth to saving others. To ask, you begin to see. And once you see, you can choose differently. No one is hurting you more than the shadow within, born from a child who was never fully loved and who grew up without ever healing. But you are also the only one who can change that. Not by running from pain, but by turning toward it, facing it, naming it, and stopping. Stop the repetition, stop the self-sacrifice, stop the self-blame, and begin to love in a new way. A love that starts not with someone else, but with you. Number 3, the map to healing, the journey of individuation. Unhealed wounds quietly influence every choice we make, from the job we accept, the partner we love, the friends we trust, to how we see ourselves in the mirror each morning. That's why so many people spend their lives not truly living for themselves, but merely replaying old emotional patterns under new names. But this is the moment to wake up. It's time to stop and ask just one question. If I am not what others did to me, then who am I? This is where the journey of individuation begins, a path Carl Jung saw as the core of human spiritual development. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, 1963, he wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self." We could therefore translate individuation as coming to selfhood, or self-realization. This journey is not about turning yourself into someone new. It's about returning to who you really are. The self you once knew, now buried beneath layers of expectation, pain, and performance. Healing your inner child does not begin with blaming your parents or your past. It starts with one light, the truth that the child still lives within you, still waiting to be seen. The first step is to bring the unconscious into consciousness. Jung wrote in Ion, 1951, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This means you cannot heal by bypassing the pain, painting it with positivity, or pretending things are fine. You must write it down, look at it, call it by its name. Sit with yourself like a compassionate adult and say the things you've kept buried. I once felt invisible. I once believed I had to earn love. I once thought I wasn't enough. Naming the truth is the beginning, because you cannot heal what you're still denying. The second step is to stop repeating old patterns. To do that, you must learn to recognize when your reaction comes from the wound, not from your authentic self. Imagine starting a new relationship. If the other person takes hours to respond and you find yourself spiraling with anxiety, that's not your present self reacting. That's the child who once stood at the school gate all day, waiting for someone who never came. Becoming aware of these reactions isn't about blaming yourself, but about no longer letting the wound make decisions for you. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, 1944, "To confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his own light." When you realize your behavior stems from a wounded part, you gain the power to choose differently, to choose love over fear, freedom over attachment. The third step, perhaps the most painful, but also the most freeing, is to give yourself what you never received. Think of what you once longed for the most: a hug, the words, "You are enough," or simply a non-judgmental gaze. You can give that to yourself today, not by waiting for others, but through small daily acts, writing letters to yourself, speaking words of kindness, choosing nourishment over punishment. One message I often repeat to people starting this journey is, don't let the voice of the one who hurt you become your inner voice. You've heard, "You're not good enough," "You're too much," "You can't do it" enough times. Now it's time to replace those voices with, "I believe in you. I'm here. I won't leave you again." Finally, the journey of individuation cannot be complete without forming a new relationship with yourself. Imagine there's a child living inside you. You wouldn't tell that child they're stupid for feeling sad, weak for being afraid, or worthless for failing. So why do you say those things to yourself every day? Jung described harmony with the true self as the key to connecting with the self, the fully integrated being. In The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, 1928, he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you cannot become who you truly are if you keep treating yourself like a problem to be fixed." A woman who learned to love herself after years of self-rejection once told me, "At first, I felt silly looking in the mirror and saying, 'I love you.' I laughed because it felt fake. But then I remembered I had said hundreds of cruel things to myself and never found that strange. So why should love feel so unbelievable?" That question changed everything for her. Maybe it's the question you need to ask too. There was also a man who had spent his life choosing controlling partners. He began with the truth that many avoid for a lifetime. No one else can save the child within you. And that truth isn't tragic. It is the beginning of true freedom. It's easy to believe that love from another person will fix what's broken inside us. We grow up with fairy tales, with the idea that someone will come along, see our pain, hold it, and make everything right. We call them soulmates, our other half, the miracle. But after enough heartbreak, after running in circles chasing connection, we finally realize no one can fill a void we refuse to face. Carl Jung said it best. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. The deepest loneliness is not the absence of people, but the inability to express your truest self, even to yourself. There's a story I always remember when this comes up. A woman once told me she had spent 10 years loving people who made her work for love. Someone unclear, someone who wouldn't choose her, someone who only showed up when they needed her. She knew it was unhealthy, but couldn't leave. Deep down, she still believed that if she tried hard enough, she would eventually be loved. When I asked her, "What are you waiting for?" she broke down in tears and said, I'm waiting for someone to prove I'm worth it. But the truth is, no one can prove that to you if you don't believe it yourself. Jung called this projecting the inner need onto the outer world. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, 1959, he wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And one of the most common ways we avoid our soul is by chasing love like a life raft, to avoid the emptiness that was there long before anyone ever hurt us." Maturity, according to Jung, is not measured by external success, but by becoming the inner adult the child in you once needed. Someone who pauses when hurt, comforts themselves when weak, sets boundaries without guilt. Someone who dares to say, "I will not abandon you." This is not just psychological theory, it's survival truth, the only way out of the cycle of pain. Jung wrote in Psychological Types, 1921, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and no one else can do that for you. The love you're looking for is not in someone else. It's in the way you look at yourself in the mirror each morning. It's in how you speak to yourself after making a mistake. Do you punish or do you forgive? It lives in the small daily choices, eating what nourishes you instead of pleasing others, sleeping early to care for your body, saying no when you're drained. Self-love is not a trend, it's survival. It's how you stop falling into relationships that make you feel small. Not because you found someone better, but because you no longer need to prove you're worth loving. Another example is Tuan, who grew up with a father who abandoned him. All his life, he craved validation from other men. He sought out relationships with powerful, dominant figures, only to be manipulated, dismissed, and discarded. Then one day, he wrote a letter to the father who was never there. And in that letter, he didn't just blame him. He told himself, "From now on, I will be the father I needed. I will be there for me." That was the day he stopped seeking love outside and began learning how to nourish himself from within. You may have had a childhood with no one to protect you, but you can't spend your entire life waiting for another adult to show up and fix that. Because now, that adult is you. Not someone perfect, just you. Honest, courageous, and ready to never abandon yourself again. Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And it is precisely because it's terrifying that so many would rather chase the wrong love than face the truth, that the first thing we must do is learn to love ourselves. If you're still waiting for someone to come ease the pain inside you, pause. Not because they don't exist, but because they can't do what you keep refusing to do for yourself. No one out there can love you right if you've never shown them how you deserve to be loved. And the most liberating truth is this: you don't have to wait anymore. The love you've been searching for has always been inside you. You just forgot. And now I want to ask you one thing. If you could be the person your inner child needed, would you start today? Write it down. It doesn't have to be profound, just honest. What are you ready to give yourself right now? Share it with me in the comments. Because healing doesn't begin when you finish a video or a conversation. It begins the moment you make one small decision and repeat it every day. I will no longer abandon myself. Number 5. Daily practice to restore self-love. Knowing that no one can save you is a liberating truth. But knowing alone is not enough. Healing is an action. It's a choice, repeated daily, small yet powerful. Self-love is not just a feeling that comes and goes. It is a habit, a practice, a daily commitment to yourself that says, I will stay. So how do you actually live that? Start with what seems simplest. Write a letter to your inner feel lost, return to healing affirmations. These aren't just words, they are energy you deliberately plant into your subconscious every day. I am enough. I love myself. I choose me. Say them while washing your face in the morning after a rejection, or even when you don't fully believe them yet. Because the truth is, your subconscious doesn't distinguish between real and fake. It simply echoes what it hears most often. And if your inner dialogue has been critical for decades, it's time to change the soundtrack. You don't need to wait until you believe to begin. Just begin, and belief will follow. One of the most overlooked yet powerful acts of self-love is setting boundaries. Setting limits isn't selfish. It means you love yourself enough not to let others reopen old wounds. You have the right to say no without guilt. You have the right to walk away from conversations that feel judgmental. You have the right not to reply to messages when you're drained. Remember, what you allow is what you accept. And if you don't protect yourself, your inner child will keep reliving old scenes in the body of the adult you've become. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, the unconscious urge to reenact unresolved patterns. The only way to break that cycle is to build a boundary of love. Here I stop. Here I choose differently. Finally, act every day as if you are worthy of love, even when you don't feel it. It can be something small, eating what you enjoy without asking permission, taking 10 minutes to simply breathe, buying a beautiful journal to note what you're grateful for, or just sitting by the window doing nothing, not because you're useful, but because you deserve peace. These small acts may not feel as dramatic as deep healing sessions, but they are the foundation. Because self-love isn't a one-time event, it's a ritual repeated in quiet moments. Dear friend, I don't know where you are in your journey, just beginning, halfway through, or returning after many detours. But I do know this. Every time you choose yourself, you rewrite your childhood story. Every time you stop staying silent, stop running from emotions, stop forcing yourself to be better just to earn love, you are stepping out of an old shadow. And if you've never heard this from anyone before, let me say it now. You have always been enough, and you deserve a peace you don't have to fight for. So let me leave you with this question before we end. Tomorrow, what is one small thing you'll do to show yourself that you love you? Write it down in the comments. It doesn't have to be perfect, just honest. Because when you write it, you're making a commitment. And when you commit, healing begins. You don't need someone to come save you. You've become the person your inner child once dreamed of. Healing is not a milestone you reach and then stop. It's not when I'm strong enough, when I stop hurting, or when I fully love myself. Healing is a choice, and you'll need to make that choice again and again, every day. Some days you'll manage it, some days you'll forget. But every time you return to yourself, even in the smallest way, it's a victory. It's living proof that you're rewriting your destiny from the inside out. Maybe you're still waiting for someone to truly see you, someone to love you deeply enough to touch your wound and soothe it. But that person is not far away. That person is you. No one else can choose you if you've never chosen yourself, and you don't need to wait another day to do that. So stop waiting for someone to come and choose you. Be the first to choose yourself. Every time you say, "I am worthy," every time you walk away from a love that's only half there, every time you return and embrace your inner child, you're standing for life, for light, for your true self. Not to become someone else, but to come home. Home to the person you've always been, if only you dare to believe it. Are you ready to choose you today? Leave a comment, just one sentence. I choose me. Because sometimes all you need to begin a new chapter is yourself, and one decision. And if this video touched you, don't forget to subscribe so we can continue walking this journey together. Every week, I'll share deep insights from Carl Jung's philosophy to help you understand yourself better, heal more deeply, and live more truthfully as the person you were born to be. Choose yourself. Choose the journey. Choose awakening. I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever wondered, why does someone who once passionately adored you suddenly turn cold? Why is it that at times, when you stop trying to make them like you, they become even more drawn to you? Carl Jung referred to this as the game of the unconscious, a realm where the ego is the true puppeteer of attachment. The ego doesn't crave sweet words of love. It yearns for a mirror that reflects an idealized version of itself, and when you offer that reflection too easily, the ego feels safe, but safety kills the instinct to pursue. So, what happens if you learn to speak to the ego at the level of the unconscious? In today's video, we'll explore 5 Jungian psychological strategies to flip the script, from being the one seeking validation to becoming the one others seek validation from. As always, I have a small challenge for you. Watch the video until the end if you're truly serious about your journey of personal growth. Leave a comment saying, "I accept the challenge," or simply, "Challenge accepted," to join us in diving into the first part of today's video. Number 1. The nature of the ego and attachment. Understanding the nature of the ego is like shining a light into a room where you've long lived in darkness. You thought you knew every corner, but when the light turns on, you discover intricate details hidden from plain sight. For Jung, the ego is not merely the self. It's like a suit of armor forged from experiences, wounds, and unfulfilled desires. What's fascinating is that this armor doesn't just protect, it constantly seeks external mirrors to reflect itself. However, not every mirror makes the ego pause. Only when it sees a reflection of the self it longs to become does the ego gravitate toward it like a magnet. This is why some people you briefly meet linger in your mind, not because of their appearance or striking personality, but because they touch the deepest layers of your ego, where you glimpse a part of yourself, sometimes the best version you wish to embody, sometimes the part you've buried. Picture the ego as a mountaineer. It doesn't climb for the view or exercise. It climbs because each step upward affirms, "I can. I deserve to stand here." When it encounters someone who sparks the need to conquer, the ego straps on its rope, drives in its anchors, and begins the ascent. But if the mountain is too easy to climb, no incline, no challenge, no risk, the ego moves on to find a taller peak because it cannot affirm its worth through an effortless victory. This is why, in relationships, when you offer validation too soon, too much, or without condition, you unwittingly become a gentle hill where no one needs to catch their breath to reach the summit. The ego operates through a mechanism of reflection, which Jung called projection. We don't see others as they truly are. We see them as mirrors of ourselves. If the ego admires strength, it seeks someone who embodies it. If the ego denies its weaknesses, it seeks someone who carries those weaknesses, not to love, but to control or avoid confronting. This explains why you might be drawn to someone who seems illogical to you, because at a deeper level, the ego is striving to affirm or conquer a fragment of itself. Consider a confident, successful woman. She has no shortage of admirers, yet she's inexplicably drawn feel more skilled, more profound, closer to his dream. That's how the ego attaches, not when it possesses, but when it's on the path to reaching. If you become that canvas, beautiful enough to captivate, yet unfinished enough to invite more strokes, you've tapped into the deepest essence of attachment. Strategy 1. The Golden Mirror. And now, we dive deeper into the first principle to activate this mechanism, the golden mirror. Picture an ordinary mirror. It reflects everything in front of it, flaws and all. But a golden mirror is different. It doesn't just reflect, it enhances, amplifying the light of the image within, making the beholder feel they're not just seeing themselves, they're seeing a better, grander, more desirable version. The ego instinctively craves this. In Jungian psychology, this is the intersection of projection and idealization. When someone looks at you and sees a quality they admire or wish to believe they possess, their unconscious ties you to that source of power. They seek you not just for who you are, but for the sense of becoming you ignite in them. This isn't abstract theory. It happens every day, and you can see it clearly in pop culture. Think of Miranda Priestly and Andrea Sachs in The Devil Wears Prada. Miranda, the powerful editor-in-chief, is accustomed to flattery and compliance. But Andrea is different. Initially clumsy and unimpressive, she gradually learns to observe deeply, understand Miranda's language of power, and crucially, reflect an image of Miranda as sharp, formidable, but also more human. Andrea doesn't rush to flatter or offer cheap praise. Instead, when she truly notices or responds, Miranda senses respect rooted in understanding, not fear. The scarcity and selectivity of Andrea's gaze make Miranda unconsciously crave her high regard. For Miranda, Andrea becomes a golden mirror, where she sees not just power, but a profound, admirable version of herself. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is the core of this strategy. But to become a golden mirror, you cannot lose your standing. If you offer this light too hastily, it loses value. A golden mirror isn't something anyone can touch. It must be placed where others must approach with reverence to gaze into it. This requires discernment and a clear awareness of your worth. Imagine you're a lighthouse. Your light shines across the sea, but it doesn't chase every ship. Because you stand firm, shining steadily, choosing where to cast your beam, ships orient themselves and sail toward you. In relationships, when you reflect the best in someone, but hold your ground instead of begging them to look, their ego is compelled to seek you out. Psychology calls this the scarcity value effect. When a source of validation is rare and high quality, people see it as a high standard and invest more to attain it. The golden mirror only captivates when it reflects just enough to show others their better version exists, while keeping enough distance that they must step forward, strive to hold on to that image. Crucially, this strategy isn't about manipulation. Manipulation involves crafting a false image to lure. The golden mirror is grounded in truth. You reflect the qualities you genuinely see, but choose to do so in a way that elevates the other. And you only do this when you truly recognize those qualities, not to buy attention. In practice, this can start with small acts. You don't rush to praise an obvious achievement, but when they show effort, perseverance, or a rare glimpse of their inner self, you acknowledge it with absolute focus. In that moment, their ego ties you to the experience of being seen at a deep level, something the outside world often overlooks. This subtlety is the gold. When you apply this principle, you'll notice a phenomenon. The other person begins actively seeking your gaze, words, or attention, as if it's a resource they need to replenish. Not because they're addicted to you, but because their ego has linked you to the feeling of, "I'm a better version of myself near this person." This is the solid foundation for building deep, lasting attachment without chasing or pleading. Sometimes it's worth asking yourself, if you vanished from their life tomorrow, what part of you would they miss most? From here, you can move to the next strategy, where we'll explore another subtle element to sustain the allure of the golden mirror, creating a healthy emotional imbalance. But before we move on, remember, the true power of this mirror isn't in its beauty, but in the belief that they can only see that image when standing before you. Strategy 2. Healthy emotional imbalance. Jung once said that the human psyche is powerfully stirred by what remains incomplete, by the gap between what is possessed and what is still missing. In the unconscious, this gap fuels the drive to conquer, and once it vanishes, the ego begins searching elsewhere for stimulation. Imagine a piece of music played on a single, unchanging note. It might feel pleasant at first, but soon enough, the listener's attention starts seeking ways to keep them in your orbit longer. Their presence is like a fleeting scent, not strong enough to dominate the space, but enough to linger in your memory, urging you to breathe it in again. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone whose unpredictable appearances leave an indescribable void when they're gone? If so, share that story below. I'd love to hear it from you. In practice, this means not always dropping everything for the other person. You might postpone a meetup to pursue something important to you. You respond to messages with focus when you're free, rather than reflexively replying instantly. Each action sends an unconscious signal. I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be. And this makes the ego alert, not in a defensive way, but in a way that drives it to hold on to you. Jung would say this awakens a primal part of human nature, the fear of losing a valuable resource that hasn't been fully claimed. But you must distinguish between healthy imbalance and manipulation. Manipulation is deliberately creating a sense of abandonment to control someone's emotions. Healthy imbalance, on the other hand, stems from your wholeness, from genuinely reserving part of your energy for yourself. Picture yourself as a mysterious garden. If you keep the gates open 24/7, letting anyone wander in, the rarity vanishes, and visitors come and go without a second thought. But if the garden opens only at specific times, when you're ready to guide them through its shaded paths, they'll cherish every moment inside and eagerly await the next visit. When you live by this principle, you'll notice a fascinating psychological phenomenon. The other person starts adjusting their behavior to maintain the connection, proactively making plans or showing more care because they sense your presence isn't guaranteed forever. That's when the ego shifts from passive to actively investing. At an unconscious level, they don't just want to keep you around, they want to win the game. They don't even realize they're playing. You don't need to explain or declare, "I'll leave if..." Your selective presence speaks for itself. As we move to the next strategy, remember, healthy emotional imbalance isn't about withdrawing. It's about keeping the pulse of the connection alive. You're the conductor, not playing too fast to end the piece early, nor too steadily to bore the audience. You play with enough pauses that when the melody resumes, it makes them stop everything to listen. And then, when the melody stirs their heart, you offer them a special gift. Not the next note, but the feeling of being recognized. It's no longer just a note in the symphony. It's the moment the spotlight shines on them, making them feel they've done something worthy of center stage. Strategy 3. Recognition as reward. Jung once said that people don't just live for what they need, but for the meaning they attach to it. And recognition from someone they value isn't just a compliment, it's a psychological milestone, proof they've crossed an invisible threshold. Imagine a golden trophy on a high pedestal. It's beautiful, gleaming, but not everyone can touch it. Each person who sees it wonders, am I worthy enough to claim it? In relationships, if your recognition is always available like free flyers on the street, it loses its allure. But if it's given as a rare, precious reward, the other person's ego immediately elevates its value in their mind. The problem is that many are taught the wrong approach. Try to please, try to praise, try to prove your agreeableness to be loved. This might create a temporary bond, but it misses a more powerful psychological mechanism, letting the other person strive to earn your recognition. This is known as the principle of earned value. Value gained through effort is cherished far more than value given freely. In a Jungian context, this ties into personal growth. We mature when facing challenges, not when things come too easily. A clear example is in friendships or romantic relationships, where some people's praise carries more weight. Not because they're harsh, but because they don't offer compliments carelessly. When they say, "I'm impressed by how you handled that," you know it comes from careful observation and genuine evaluation. In that moment, your ego isn't just flattered, it's affirmed. In everyday life, picture a sports coach. If he claps for every shot, hit or miss, players soon tune it out as background noise. But if he only nods for a perfect shot, That nod becomes the goal they strive for. In personal relationships, your recognition needs to be that kind of nod moment. This doesn't mean being cold or overly critical, but choosing the right moment, behavior, or quality to acknowledge. When you do, the ego learns that your recognition doesn't come from a lower position, but from someone with standards, someone who sees deeply. And when the ego believes those standards are high, it will do anything to meet them. Jung emphasized that relationships are a two-way mirror. When you recognize something in another, you're also affirming a value in yourself. In Jungian terms, this is the interplay between persona and self. When you praise surface-level displays, glamour, crowd-pleasing performances, you feed their persona while reinforcing a corresponding persona in yourself. Taken, not to mask. Technically, shift from praising achievements to recognizing process. Instead of "great job," say, "I see how you kept going, even on days you wanted to give up." Shift from praising image to recognizing presence. The way you listen without interrupting makes this conversation feel safe. These three axes, process, presence, and self-reflection, are pillars of the self. The more you pour rewards into them, the more you pull the game away from the persona's stage. Meanwhile, set a 3C filter for all recognition: character, courage, consistency. If their behavior doesn't touch at least one of these, don't sprinkle the spice just to ease the moment. When you apply this principle, you'll see the other person start doing homework for you without realizing it. They'll proactively share achievements, talk about efforts, or reveal deeper parts of themselves, all to trigger that moment when you nod or smile in recognition. This isn't a power game. It's a process of guiding the relationship towards standards that foster mutual growth. The biggest difference between this strategy and unconditional recognition is that here you don't bestow but gift, and the gift only comes when there's a genuine reason. In behavioral psychology, this creates sustainable reinforcement. because the ego will keep seeking to repeat behaviors that earn the reward. With this strategy, the connection no longer hinges on you constantly proving you're good enough. It shifts to the other person proving they're worthy. And perhaps this is a moment to ask yourself, if your recognition is a precious reward, what makes it truly worth craving? The answer is the foundation for moving to the next strategy, where you'll learn to communicate with the ego at its deepest level, without them even realizing they're being read. Strategy 4. Speaking to the ego without the ego realizing. Once you've turned recognition into a reward, the ego will start actively seeking ways to score points with you. But at this stage, if you respond too directly, they'll sense they're being guided. To keep that motivation from cooling, you need a more sophisticated approach, influencing the ego without it noticing. This is where artistry comes in. You step off the stage, no longer calling out standards explicitly, and retreat to the wings, directing the spotlight so the ego believes every move originates from itself. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." The ego is such a sensitive entity. It bristles defensively when it senses someone trying to change it, but opens the door when it feels the change is its own choice. It's like teaching a child afraid of water to swim. If you push them into the lake, they'll thrash and resist, perhaps even resent you. But if you sit by the shore, dip your feet in, smile, and share stories about the beautiful creatures living beneath the surface, soon enough, they'll dip a hand in, then a foot, and eventually jump in on their own. The adult ego works the same way. When it feels it's being taught or manipulated, it builds walls. But when you subtly weave a message into ordinary moments, it absorbs without realizing it's absorbing. A clear real-life example is how a perceptive friend helps you break a bad habit. They never say, "You should quit smoking." That only triggers defensiveness. Instead, over coffee, they casually mention how much better they sleep since quitting, how their skin glows, how easy their morning runs feel. They don't demand change. They plant a seed of a different version of you that your ego wants to become. A week later, you find yourself curious to try it, deciding to quit, believing it's entirely your idea. In Jungian psychology, this is a soft application of projection and identification. You reflect a standard or lifestyle the other person unconsciously wants to align with, without forcing it. Crucially, this reflection mustn't carry judgment, as the ego can't bear feeling diminished. Instead of saying, "You're not enough," you say, "This suits who you are so well." That's the difference between knocking on the door and breaking it down. Picture a gardener. They know a plant leans toward light, so instead of bending the branch, they place a mirror to reflect sunlight to the right spot. The branch grows and turns that way, unaware it's being taught. When communicating with the ego, you must place the mirror just right. Let them see themselves as better, stronger, deeper when they act in a certain way, without hearing you command it. This subtlety is evident in a workplace scenario. Suppose you want a colleague to be more proactive. Instead of complaining, "You always wait for me to remind you," you naturally share a story about another project where a team member stepped up and earned the boss's trust for bigger responsibilities. No judgment, no direct hint, but their unconscious links proactivity with success and recognition. The next time an opportunity arises, their ego will want to try to be seen that way. The key to this strategy is detaching the message from commands. The message should be wrapped in stories, examples, or behaviors you model so the ego discovers it. When the ego thinks, I feel on its idea. Strategy 5. Metered recognition. Jung emphasized that the human psyche is drawn not just to what brings pleasure, but to the rhythm between having and not yet having. Our unconscious values what is scarce, and the ego is particularly addicted to the feeling of almost reaching, but not fully grasping. Recognition is like a pure form of energy. If you let it flow constantly, it becomes background noise the other person stops noticing. But if you regulate it, letting moments of recognition shine like a beam through clouds at just the right time, the ego will be driven to create more opportunities for that light to appear again. This isn't about being emotionally stingy. It's about keeping the reward valuable. Imagine a wildlife photographer. They don't snap endlessly to make sure they get a shot, as that yields countless mediocre moments. Instead, they patiently observe, waiting for the bird to spread its wings in the right light, for the morning sun to touch each feather, then take a single decisive shot. That photo isn't just more beautiful, it's valuable, because it was born from patience and the perfect moment. Metered recognition works the same way. It doesn't come in a flood or carelessly, but is snapped at the precise moment a behavior or quality hits the golden mark. Then, the ego doesn't just receive praise, it feels it's created a photo worth preserving in someone else's memory. A common example. In a friend group, someone always compliments your new shirt or hairstyle. At first it feels nice, but soon it loses meaning. In contrast, someone who rarely praises but says, "Today you seem like yourself," leaves a lasting impression, because you know their words aren't casual. That rarity amplifies the weight of their words, and your ego, consciously or not, seeks to recapture that feeling of recognition. Psychologically, this is the principle of intermittent reinforcement. Research shows behaviors reinforced sporadically are more durable and addictive than those reinforced constantly. In Jungian terms, this ties to the shadow of desire. When a part of us isn't fully satisfied, it keeps seeking, keeps dreaming. Metered recognition keeps that desire alive without becoming a toxic dependency. However, metering doesn't mean withholding or deliberate neglect. The gaps between recognition must be filled with genuine presence and real communication to keep the relationship warm. What you're doing is creating contrast, letting recognition stand out sharply against ordinary moments. When the ego senses this contrast, it learns that each compliment, each appreciative glance from you is a prize worth pursuing. Think of sunlight streaming through a window in the morning. If the room is flooded with light all day, you forget the joy of its arrival. But if it's been pouring rain for days, and that rare light breaks through after the storm, you pause, notice, and feel it fully. Metered recognition creates that pause moment for the ego. To practice, follow these principles. First principle: only recognize when there's a real reason. Don't let recognition become a reflex. Observe closely, find the behavior or quality you want to reinforce, and acknowledge it at the right time. Second principle: recognize specifically, not generically. Instead of "great job," say, "The way you handled that situation while staying calm impressed me." Specificity tells the ego exactly what earned the recognition, making it want to repeat it. Third principle: leave space between recognitions, as not every small success needs immediate feedback. Sometimes silence is part of the strategy, so the next recognition stands out more. Final principle: keep recognition aligned with standards. If you've built high standards through earlier strategies, ensure every compliment reflects those standards, so the ego knows this isn't luck. It's a reward for meeting the mark. A compelling case I've seen: a manager who didn't praise employees after every task, but only when they overcame significant obstacles or showed exceptional initiative. At first, employees were frustrated, but over time, they worked harder, proactively seeking creative ways to improve. Knowing a "well done" from the manager was rare and valuable. Within months, the team's work quality visibly improved. This is the power of metering, turning recognition into a long-term motivator rather than instant gratification. Jung would see this as calling untapped potential. When recognition isn't poured into every behavior, the ego keeps searching, expanding itself to be seen in new ways. This process keeps the connection's flame alive and prevents the relationship from slipping into false stability, where it exists but is emotionally dead. When you combine everything learned, the golden mirror, healthy emotional imbalance, recognition as reward, speaking to the ego without it realizing, and finally metered recognition, you'll see a subtle but profound shift. You no longer chase attention or affection. They come to you, drawn by the standards you set and how you keep them alive. Then you truly grasp Jung's insight. Emotion is the chief source of all becoming conscious. There can be no transforming of darkness into light without emotion. You've transformed not just the relationship, but your place in it. No longer the one seeking recognition, you become the one whose recognition is a treasure, and once the ego tastes it, it can't forget. This journey's end isn't a tactic to win a power game, but a redefinition of how you show up in relationships. When you master these 5 Jungian strategies, you move from begging for attention to being a source of value, a psychological anchor others can't easily find elsewhere. Most importantly, you'll realize you don't need to sacrifice your identity or force unnatural actions to be a powerful draw. And that draw, built from understanding the ego, is more enduring than any promise or fleeting emotion. Like an artist who knows when to leave silence in a melody, you learn when to offer recognition and when to let the other person seek it. And if you truly grasp what you've just heard, try becoming someone whose recognition is a treasure, and see who's brave enough to hold on to it.